While he had to go through such inexplicable training, each one of those preparations was to teach him how to fight, how to survive against these monsters. But there was still something that did make sense to him. His father said he had no intention of ever letting him out of the basement. So if that was true, why train him to survive on the surface? Which part of the story was a lie? Did his father really never plan to send him to the surface? He remembered the moment his father had panicked. He was certain that wasn't an act. And aside from his mother's death, his father rarely lied. If he truly didn't intend for him to go to the surface, then the training must have been to ensure he'd survive if it ever happened. But something still didn't add up. On the deity apocalypse began, all the doors to that place had opened. He was sure that wasn't part of the original plan. Yeah, he knew that if he had stayed there, he would have died in the swarm of monsters that invaded. What he didn't understand was why so many creatures had attacked that place. And more importantly, how had his father known the apocalypse was coming? As he stared at the monster's core, the glasses guy asked what the unbreakable object was. He tossed it to the woman and asked if she wanted to figure it out. But she screamed and said it was disgusting, throwing it back. The core rolled toward the protagonist, who slowly stopped it with his finger. The energy inside seemed to react to him flowing into the core before it fell to the ground again. It rolled to his side and the glasses guy asked when it just happened. The protagonist looked puzzled, picked it up, and examined it. Someone else suggested it was better for everyone to sleep as tomorrow would be a long day. As he looked back at the core, it disintegrated in his hand. Haru lay nearby, silent. She was reflecting on how she tried to run away again. Despite promising herself, she wouldn't. She remembered the girl she had abandoned and muttered that she needed to apologize to her. The protagonist lay down as well. He seemed to recall his father reading a book, wondering about the memory. He remembered that there had been a time when his father was normal. So long ago that he had forgotten what it was like. The boy asked his father if he wanted to read that book and his father said yes. It was a story from his homeland. A tale of a hero whose name. But his father's image faded and the boy woke up to find Haru near him. Actually far too close. What was she doing? But don't get too excited. Of course, she covered his mouth and trembled, pointing to the side. There was a noise coming from behind the rocks. The two stayed perfectly still, watching. Haru was sweating bullets. What appeared was a little rat. She sighed in relief, muttering that she couldn't believe she got so worried over that. That's when she realized she was on top of him. The protagonist remarked that she was kind of heavy and asked if she could please get off. Furious, she shouted that she wasn't heavy and told him to be quiet. Later, she was observing the city through binoculars. No matter where she looked, it was full of creatures. She called over to him asking how the map was coming along because they needed to leave. She said it was coming along fine, but reminded him to call her by her name. At that moment, the glasses guy asked what the boy's name was since no one knew, including them. The protagonist replied that he didn't have a name, having never been called one since he was a child. The woman asked that they should just keep referring to him as you, or if they could give him a name right now. He seemed confused, asking if they were going to name him. Haru suggested calling him stupid because it would be easier to remember. Caught off guard, the protagonist had no idea what name he wanted. Yet never thought about it before. Then he remembered the conversation with his father and the book. Finally, he said they could call him Blue. Everyone was a bit puzzled. Haru said it was a strange name and asked if it had any meaning. He replied that it didn't. It was just the name of a character and a book he used to read as a kid. That's when the group realized they hadn't introduced themselves yet, but when it said her name was Yujin and the glasses guy was Jion. Haru introduced herself, adding that she was sure the idiot wouldn't remember any of their names. The protagonist was about to introduce himself, but everyone stared at him expectantly. He remembered being in the basement, lifting a pencil. He declared, "My name is Blue. It's nice to meet you all." Haru smiled and the group exchanged glances, saying it was nice to meet Blue too. He felt back to the dreams he had of leaving that place. He always imagined that if he could reach the surface, he'd greet people and have conversations with them. Maybe he wanted to become friends with them. Shaky unextended his hand and said, "Now we're friends." But just as the protagonist reached out to shake his hand, memories of all the deaths flooded his mind. The thought of finding his parents sought him and he pulled back saying, "No." Everyone was confused for a moment, but it was time to continue their journey. He knew that, if not for the apocalypse, he would never have been friends with these people. But finding his mother was his priority. He wasn't the time to chase the dreams he had before. At that moment, someone screamed nearby. Ahead of them, a man was trying to fend himself from a creature, the monster. A massive beast with gnashing teeth was attempting to eat him. Eugen started to move forward, but the protagonist stopped her and asked what she was thinking. Embarrassed, she said they should help the man. Otherwise, he'd die. The protagonist firmly replied, "No." He explained that if they could hear the man's screams, so put the monsters. Eugen insisted they still had time to save him before something worse happened, but the protagonist reminded her of what he had said before they came to the surface. She had promised to follow his orders. Eugen hesitated, unsure of what to do. Suddenly, she darted toward the man. The protagonist shouted that she was an idiot. She grabbed a branch and stabbed the monster in the back, throwing it to the ground, where it rolled away. The man shocked to see other people stammering. Eugen told him to calm down and stay quiet so they could leave him to safety. But the man yelled, warning her to look behind her. Just as the monster lunged for her head, the protagonist saved the day again. The man was stunned, asking how he had done it. But Blue ignored him and turned to Eugen, asking if she realized what she had just done. She had put everyone in danger. They quickly discovered the man had broken legs, complicating things further. The protagonist knew the man would be of no use to them. Then he started hearing sounds. Creatures were closing in from all sides. He told the man that they couldn't help him anymore. They had already risked too much saving him from the monster. He then turned to Eugen and said if she truly wanted to help this man, he didn't care. But if that was the case, she wasn't to follow them anymore. He reminded her that she had promised to obey him to stay on the surface. She got an aggrieved, saying the boy was right. Wasn't the time to worry about others. They had to remember the people waiting for them back at the base. Eugen paused for a moment before finally agreeing. "Fine," she said. "I'll obey you." But the protagonist looked startled. The man she had saved spoke up, asking who gave them permission to leave him there. He demanded they stop joking around. It was obvious he would die if abandoned. He argued that leaving him there was worse than murder, was the same as killing him. The protagonist in the way told him to shut up. Suddenly, something started approaching. The man desperate drew you in more attention. Everyone seemed surrounded, amid the chaos. The protagonist took a moment to breathe. However, asked what they were going to do as monsters were closing in from all directions. He said the worst hadn't happened yet. They still had time to escape before being cornered. They knew at least the path they came from was free of monsters. All they had to do was retrace their steps. But then the man lit a lighter. Everyone asked what he was doing. He pointed to a nearby smoking hazard sign. She again shouted, asking if he realized that would attract the monsters. The man calmly replied that he knew exactly what it would do. After all, he had accidentally destroyed the last base he was at. The boy demanded to know why he was doing this. The man lit the lighter, releasing smoke, and said he just wanted one less smoke before he died. Monsters began rushing in from every direction. Blue yelled for everyone to run. The man on the ground was the first to die. Two creatures charged at the protagonist, who pulled out his knives. Meanwhile, Eugene and Jean took off running. Haru stood frozen, watching as the protagonist was surrounded by creatures. She didn't understand why he wasn't running. He dodged another attack, sliding away only to avoid another. He approached a one-eyed creature, found its core and struck it dead on. He managed to take down one after another. But then he was struck, thrown backward as more creatures approached.